Hey everyone, it is Monday, November 30th, and we are here for a special half-hour earlier edition of Litvak Leadership Live. And I have my good friend and colleague in the FM world with me, Teena Shouse. How are you, Teena?
I'm excellent. It's a beautiful day here in Kansas City. Had a wonderful Thanksgiving with a couple of family members, and life is good.
Excellent, excellent. We're not quite as sunny here in Louisville. In fact, looking out, it's a little bit of a flurry, which is
Oh,
kind of a surprise for Louisville. But
sure.
hopefully, an early snow means not a lot of snow moving on. So, for those of you who don't know Teena, Teena is a legend, whether she wants to admit it or not, in the facility management community. Teena served as executive director of the International Facility Management Association twice. You were executive director?
I was the chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board. Chairman of the board.
Yes. And I stayed on I was on the board collectively 8 years, and then went on to be with Global FM. Yep.
And what Teena was just explaining to me before we started talking with everyone here was that most people are only on the board of directors for a couple years. So everyone loved Teena and what she had to say. So I thought it would be great to have Teena on, because I know the local chapter that I'm a part of for IFMA, the International Facility Management Association, we have been having COVID-19 coronavirus water cooler discussions since March every single week on Zoom. And I know that Teena probably has a lot to say about where FM is going. But Teena, let me ask you first, you've retired a little while ago. What are you doing with yourself?
Well, believe it or not, I really stink at retirement. So I have been working with IFMA on updating some educational materials. I am right now working on creating a virtual course for a new community college that wants to start a facility management degree program.
Oh, wow.
And I'm still actively working with my local Kansas City chapter. I serve on a couple of boards of other nonprofits. And when COVID hit, my teaching and my speaking really came to a screeching halt. And so we had to get inventive. And so we did our first virtual CFM prep workshop, which came off beautifully. And we did it on Zoom, and everyone really enjoyed it. And so I'm doing that. And for a little exercise, I still get to get out and play golf.
Okay.
And so when my income from my paid gigs, if you will, kind of started dwindling, I thought, I still want to play golf. So I went to work at the golf course.
Okay. And what are you doing at the golf course?
I just work at the pro shop, and I love it. I love all the people, and I get free golf. So it's a great deal. It's a great deal. And in between that, I just still do a lot of community work. And I also I'm doing a lot of mentoring right now. A lot of people are really taking this time to re-identify where they are in their profession, especially in facility management. And I probably get 1 to 2 resumes a week where somebody will say, hey, I'm looking for something, or I'm thinking about moving from this state to this state. And so I'll do some professional mentoring in that way.
Sure.
Also, a lot of the people are looking at their strategic plan. And so I've been working with a couple of chapters on helping them really kind of re-identify themselves, or strategize where they want to be. What are their strategy, and have they really changed that much since COVID?
So on that note, I mean, our local chapter in the Louisville area, we have not met together since probably February, if I have to think back. I think we canceled the May meeting or the March meeting, thinking that we would come back in April or May. Sure. Silly us. Yet we've seen other chapters go out and have golf outings and whatnot like that, and we elected not to have our golf outings. What is the feeling out there amongst the chapters about getting together, and if so, how do they do it to exchange ideas in person?
Well, the in-persons have actually dwindled as well. I think that some people have kind of gravitated back a little bit, or some of them carried on activities a little bit longer than others, and then they finally shut those down as well. I think for the most part, what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing is much more of the virtual. We actually did, our annual party. We hired a comedian who used to be, actually his name was Agent, oh gosh, can't think of his last name. He was in that series Breaking Bad.
Okay.
Agent Gomez. Well,
Okay.
Agent Gomez has actually started out as a comedian. So anyway, we hired him, and we were going to go half virtual and half in person. And we thought that would be a great solution. And it was kind of daring, and then right as we had a really good attendance, or really good enrollment in the event. And at the very last minute, they changed the attendance regulations as far as in our city.
Oh,
Our group size. And
sure.
so in 2 days, we went to a totally virtual event, which meant many of us ran from door to door from all of our members, bringing them a bottle of wine so that they could enjoy themselves at our virtual event. And so that's how we spent our annual meeting. So we were entertained by a comedian, and then we had an ugly sweater contest.
Okay.
And
which you can do virtually.
Which we did virtually. It was beautiful, very well done, and a lot of reminiscing. And it was really interesting. You know, I've been with my chapter 30 years. And so I have seen so many people develop into amazing, professionals, and have seen the ebb and flow of the chapter. And so anyway, I actually mentioned your chapter to a couple of other chapters, because they were talking about how often should we meet, and what is the construct, and what should we be doing. And most of the chapters are meeting a minimum of once a month still.
Right.
And then there's some that are meeting like you guys, once a week, and it varies. It also varies on what's coming out as far as a new resource. And if there's something timely, we'll throw something in there. And I know other chapters are doing the same thing, and they'll modify something. But the biggest thing is trying to get the resources out to everyone. So we have a special place on our website for COVID resources. And so that's been really helpful, because it's like, okay, everybody wants to sell their wares, but how do you kind of vet those, and then how do you get those into the hands of the people that really need them? And for instance, I found an organization that they sold this antibiotic or antibacterial misting system, where you look like the Ghostbusters. You have the little backpack on and the screen hat on, and you're going through, and they could basically sanitize a huge room in about 30 minutes.
Yep.
And so getting that information out to people. And so we found several ways.
Getting the electrostatic sprayers out so people know how to use them. So you've been in FM now for 30 years. What first attracted you to it?
Wow. In 1988.
Okay.
So it has been a little over 30 years, I guess now. I was actually I was in the service industry. I've always been in the service industry. I worked for Aramark back in the days when it was ARA. I've worked for Waste Management, and I had a client, Sprint. And Sprint was and I was entertaining my client one night, and we were at a basketball game, and he asked me if I would be interested in becoming a facility manager. And I said, and why in God's name would I do that? And and he said, because you'd be fabulous at it. And I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm pretty happy where I am. And things progressed, and I started having to travel a little bit more. And then the next thing I know, he offered me a position again, and it was 21 blocks from my house with no travel. Ooh. And I had a preteen, and I was starting to miss basketball games and softball games, and that just wouldn't work. So January of 1989, I went to work for Sprint. At that time, it was US Sprint.
Okay.
And I walked into my first buildings basically eyes wide open. And I learned a lot by following around I would follow my uh, service providers. And I was like a 2-year-old. I was the imitator. I was imitating. What's that? What's that do? How does that work? Why does that
You
work?
were inquisitive. That's good.
And that's how I learned. And then my boss said, immediately you will join IFMA. And that will be one of your best professional moves you'll ever make. And lo
Hmm.
and behold, it changed my life. And
Wow.
I often say, it's pretty incredible that a little girl from Wichita, Kansas, with really with no real dreams or goals of even attending college, much less, doing the things I've been able to do, like travel the world and to spread the gospel of facility management. I mean, that's what I do.
That's amazing.
And I've had an incredible career, and 90% of it is because of working really hard, but also my association with IFMA.
So what was the most, because I've been blessed in this way too, going into all kinds of facilities over the years and seeing
Sure,
some really unique facilities.
sure.
You've probably been in far more facilities than I have. What would you say was one of the most unique facilities you ever had the opportunity to visit?
Whew, that's a lot. Harvard Medical School was really fascinating because I went the live labs and all of that. I actually, probably one of the most amazing structures or amazing facilities I actually got to work on, and that was the Kauffman Center for the Performing Arts in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
A beautiful, beautiful performing arts center, of which I was on the O&M development team. Um, I've been to the Sydney Opera House, which a very dear friend of mine, which I met through IFMA. He was actually the facility director there and was responsible for the renovation. I was on the construction site of the Cube in China and
Oh my.
the Beijing Olympics.
Okay.
And that was China had to be. I mean, being there on the construction site and understanding just the dynamics of all of that, and then talking to the people about how it was going to be managed and operated and that sort of thing. So I have to say, probably the construction site or the Olympics in China.
Yeah, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity
It
for
was.
most.
Oh, well, and what was lovely about it is that I was leading a delegation of facility managers from all over the United States. And so I had people with me from Harvard, from Adobe, from Coca-Cola. I mean, a lot of the big companies were able to send their facility managers to this people-to-people delegation that I led. And so for 2 weeks, we explored China, and really we shared with them some of the things that we thought were important. In fact, one of our gentlemen actually had his green cleaning book that he wrote, Steve
Mhm.
Ashton.
Yes.
Do you know Steve?
I have met him before.
Yes. He had his transcribed into Mandarin. And
Okay.
so here we were going through China, and he's handing out green cleaning to people that we're still trying to get them to understand facility management. And so that was quite interesting.
That is amazing. So when you look at as organizations are talking about reentry into their buildings and the conversation, first it was, okay, we're going to go back in July. Then it was, we're going to go back in September. Then it was, we're going to go back January 1st. And I've heard about a month ago, people now talking about April or July. How are you advising facility managers what they should be looking at to move ahead so people trust them as they go back into their facilities? I mean, I know it's not an easy question.
Oh, no.
There's
Well, there's a lot of different things. I mean, a lot of policies and a lot of procedures are changing. clearly.
Right.
And everything from air filtration, HVAC modifications to cleaning and to touchless this, touchless that. I mean, I think this has been a time for people to really look at a lot of the things they probably wanted to do anyway. They wanted to make modifications. They wanted to improve the operations of their facilities. And so I think what I'm telling them is to, use this as an opportunity. But what's interesting is they're having to do this in stages. So they're almost building like what if scenarios, right? It's what if we open in January? What if we open in March? So with each of those what ifs, they have to be laid against their strategic plan. They have to be laid against their objectives. And their objective is to create a positive, a productive, and a healthy, safe environment. That has never changed. That has always been our goal. I mean, that's, when you really look at our mantra is to create productive, safe, and healthy environments in which for people to work. So I don't think that this has fundamentally changed a great deal for people. I think if anything, our stature in society, in the business world, in the, managing stadiums. I was on a panel the other day with the woman who manages both the stadiums in Baltimore. And, what she does and what others do for their facilities and for the properties is actually being highlighted now more than ever. Absolutely. So this is the time for them to shine. So this is their time to say, I have a plan. I wanted to upgrade this, and now I really want to upgrade this, and let me show you what the ROI is on it. And then when we do all of this, we need to come up with a communication plan, because I think where your question might have been going is then how do we communicate that? It's one thing to do it, but then it's another to actually give those people that sense of security, or that sense of safety. And
and I've had someone tell me in the FM world that there's three kinds of employees out there now. There's those that need to go back to work because they need supervision to go. When I say back to work, into the office.
Sure.
There's those that want to go back for social. And then there's those that say, I'm never going back to the office. You can't make me, and I'll find a virtual job. So those people, maybe the smallest percentage of those are the ones who want to go back. But if that other two groups, there needs to be a certain level of comfortability. I've worked from my home for years, but it would still be nice to be able to get in front of people more often.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here again, I think that we need to figure out, even those people that say they never want to come back, I think we need to be actively thinking about, I think it's unhealthy. I think psychologically and business-wise, I think it's unhealthy. I mean, that's a very severe cut of that tether to the employee, to the organization. I don't think you can underestimate or undervalue what it means, and for them to have that visible connection and to be able to communicate more easily. I think what's interesting is I was seeing, and maybe it's just the places I was looking, but I was seeing a movement to people moving more back to the office.
Okay, good.
Than before COVID.
Oh, okay.
Before COVID. And I think a lot of it was people were finally understanding the collaboration and the creativeness. I mean, you look at companies that have, you look at Google, you look at Facebook. Facebook of all people were saying, "Hey, we might have made a mistake. Letting so many people work from home. We need to think about collaboration. We need to think about where these ideas come about." And, I lived that even at Sprint. I mean, we had, even in our design of our campus, we built a 4.2 million square foot campus that housed about 12,000 employees. And I had the good fortune of being on the design team and then on the operations team after that. And we even designed our elevators and our stairways to facilitate communication.
That's amazing.
So we made our elevators as slow as possible. So to deter people from taking them.
Oh,
I'm not kidding. And we made our stairways extremely wide, open, artwork, colors, because we wanted to continue for people to facilitate conversation. And so I think we need to do everything we can to stay strategic. We need to make sure that we go back and look at what were the things we wanted to do in the first place as facility managers, see which one of those has the best ROI. And when I'm talking ROI right now, it might not be just dollars. It might be sense of security. It might be sense of safety, right?
It's absolutely sense of safety for some people.
No doubt. We can build another line item into the ROI of that project. And then we need to figure out how to sell that. We need to figure out how to market that so that they can see that we are thinking about it. We do have a plan, and they should listen to us and they should back us, because right now, when I see the signs that say heroes work here, I want one of those for every building that has a facility manager.
Yeah. And locally in Louisville, we actually had one of our facility managers recognized by their organization, David Miltemeyer from Sacred Heart Schools, got the recognition that he deserves. And it was a beautiful thing. David is very, very humble and didn't like the recognition at all, and probably won't even like it that I'm bringing it up here. But nonetheless, it is important. So when you look at the pandemic as teaching lessons for facilities, what do you think the pandemic has taught facility managers about adapting to the situation and preparedness for the future?
Well, I think one of the things is, business continuity and emergency preparedness is something that we all preach about a lot, but a lot of times people do not put enough money and thought and planning into contingency planning for business continuity as well as emergencies, okay? Or right. Emergency planning and then the business continuity. This is the lesson learned. We of all times, we needed to figure out, we should have had a plan, and we should have plans that say, you cannot go back to the office. Now what do we do? And do we have the right technology? Do we have the right communication tools? Do we have the right managerial processes in place? I liked what you said, about some people need to go back for the supervision. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were not taught to be self-motivated, to be self-managed, right. Okay? So I think we've learned that perhaps we might spend a little more money on our supervision and our managerial skill sets for our people. Mm-hmm. Should we plan for the next pandemic? Mm-hmm. Should we be thinking, what if this would happen in another 5 years? So how would we, what are our lessons learned, and what would we do differently? And I think that is something that people already need to be thinking about now, rather than when they actually darken the door of their office.
So what do you think is going to happen with hoteling in the office buildings? Because I can tell you, I know many people that, they're on the road, or there's so many people in their organization, they were already kind of a flex in the office, out of the office, and they had whole areas of their office suite that were hoteling. And, I would think that's going out the door. How do businesses respond to that?
Well, okay, let me ask you, why do you think it's going out the door?
Because I just don't think people are going. Two reasons. One, I don't think people are going to want to sit where someone else has sat. Okay. And two, I don't think most organizations are going to want to pay the price that is needed for disinfection to convince people to sit where someone else has sat.
Well, we've been studying with where other people have sat in telemarketing centers
forever
and ever. And we have dealt with this before. When I was with Sprint, and we had our telemarketing centers, that was always a huge issue. And we had to make sure that we had some very strict guidelines in the housekeeping guidelines. People were scared before this. I mean, this being scared or being concerned about your health, this has just been heightened. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot up in the air. I've heard all of these numbers about, corporate real estate going down 30%. I've heard other people say it's probably going to be closer to 10. You know what? I don't know. I wish I had if I had that, that magic ball.
Oh yeah.
I'd be investing in something other than what I'm investing in right now.
I've heard people say that although there'll be less people in the offices, the office suites will actually expand because they'll need more room for physical distancing.
I have to
wonder. Coming from an engineer too.
Yeah. But I have to wonder. We've been through pandemics. We've been through the swine flu. We've been through the N1H1. We've been through this before, and the sensitivity is very, very high, and then it lessens. Will that happen again? Will people just find the new normal in that we are more strict in the way that we do take care of the facilities, and we do ensure that we are doing a better job? I mean, just our airplanes alone have learned. You got to go back and start cleaning those airplanes. I mean, I flew every other day before the pandemic, when I was working before FM transitions, and it was disgusting.
Always has been. Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so now you're just going to clean your airplanes better, because I know people are still going to have to fly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what it has done is it has just raised the bar of what is acceptable, right? And that's what we're going to have to react to.
So Kenny Mayberry here has a question about the future of speculative real estate, and do you think COVID's going to put a damper on future buildings being built for office space? Are people really going to fill up more, in your opinion, or are they going to build more so there's more space? What do you think as the industry legend?
I wish I had it in that particular field. I'm more the operations person than the futuristic corporate. I think they're going to hit the pause button at least for another 12 to 18 months. I don't think you'll see. There was already a bit of a slowdown, especially in larger campuses and that sort of thing. And so I wouldn't be saying in the next 12 to 16 months, people are just going to wait and see what happens and see how people react, because the old adage, build it and they will use it, may not be right. I think we're going to have to see how everybody reacts to this, whether it's and I think we need to look at what other countries are doing as well, and who's been more progressive, and start looking at what's working around, and not just looking at what's happening here in the United States. What are the best practices? And this is one thing that I've always said: look abroad at some of the more progressive corporate real estate and facility management operations. Look at the Netherlands. Look in the up in Germany. Germany and Austria have always been at the forefront of best practices, in my opinion. And I think, Belgium, Netherlands area, any of that would be something to look at. Denmark, and see what other trends, what they're looking, what are they doing, and benchmark against something like that.
All right. Well, shockingly, we've gone almost half an hour already. We've gone 29 minutes. It just flies by.
It does.
And as we are rolling towards the end, tell me, what do you want people to take away from this conversation? What impression do you want to make on them about FM?
I think that I want people to stand up and be recognized and be seen as the enablers of these organizations, like you should have done before. Facility managers create solutions. I've often said a good facility manager is a solution architect. You create solutions. Get in there, figure out what it's going to take to make your company successful. Who's going to rise above this first? Who's going to be the company that does retain and recruit? Because there was already, certain fields, there was already a fight for talent. And so the facility manager needs to position themselves right now as that enabler that the CEO, the CFO, the COO, whoever it is, looks at and says, you are one of the people, you are part of the team that's going to make us rise and shine through this pandemic and recover. Be an enabler.
Be an enabler in a good way.
That's right. That's true.
Teena, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's always nice to speak with you. You have such insight into FM. It's great talking to you. So I'm sure
I wish I had a better crystal ball, but if I come up with anything great, I'll post it and we'll all get rich.
There you go. That sounds great. So that is Litvak Leadership Live for today, everyone. Have a blessed day, and we will see you tomorrow back at our regular time of 3 p.m. Eastern. Bye now.